All right, first bill up, Representative Long. No longer on our committee. I will move to re-refer House File 2023 to the Public Safety Finance and Policy Committee. I understand you have a couple of amendments. I'm going to move the simplest one first, the A5 amendment. My understanding is that's just a technical amendment to correct a drafting error. Is that correct?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
All right, any discussion to the A5? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. Moving on, Representative Long, do you want to do the other two amendments first before we get to the presentation? Great. I will move the A3 amendment. Representative Long, please tell us what the A3 does.
Chair Becker-Finn, the A3 is to set up an appropriation to help with juvenile record expungement. So in the process of preparing the bill for reintroduction this year, we heard from a number of practitioners that many juveniles, even though they're eligible for expungement, don't often take advantage. And so this is trying to set up a grant program to help make sure that juveniles are aware of their ability to seek expungement and are provided some assistance in that process.
All right, and I see that's to the Commissioner DPS, and we are sending this to Public Safety, so it being a blank appropriation. Any discussion to the A3 amendment? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. The A4 amendment, I will move the A4 amendment. Representative Long, please tell us about the A4.
Thank you, Chair Becker-Finn. So the A4 will help provide additional protection to employers for hiring individuals with expunged records. And so this is something that had been the intent of the bill, but hadn't actually been in our language. So we wanted to make sure to clean that up.
All right, any discussion to the A4 amendment? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. All right, we now have the bill in the form you would like it. Representative Long, please tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Chair Becker-Finn. So the Clean Slate Act has a really simple premise, which is that we should give those who have paid their debt to society an opportunity for redemption. Too often, having a criminal record severely limits an individual's opportunities to find jobs, housing, or education. And I, for one, have heard many moving personal stories from my constituents about individuals who have struggled in the past and are trying to turn their lives around, but come into barrier after barrier in terms of finding new jobs or finding the ability to seek the educational opportunities they'd like. 1 in 4 Minnesotans have some type of criminal record, and 90% of employers conduct background checks. So when you put those two numbers together, that adds up to a really significant barrier to employment for tens of thousands of Minnesotans. But our current system of opt-in expungement by petition isn't cutting it. Too many people don't know they're eligible or don't take advantage. There are barriers in terms of time and legal costs to pursuing expungement by petition. In 2019, there was a study in Michigan that found that just 6% of eligible people obtained expungement through petition within 5 years of eligibility. And I would expect we'd find similar numbers in Minnesota if a study was done here. This bill is similar to broad bipartisan efforts we've seen enacted now in 10 states, including Utah, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Oklahoma. In Utah, the bill passed unanimously. In Pennsylvania, the vote was 181-2. In Michigan, after the bill was passed, those who have had records expunged saw their average wages increase by 25%. We're facing a real workforce crunch in our state. Giving employers the peace of mind that these crimes would no longer need to be part of a background screening would help them hire and would help expand their worker pool. The bill also builds on the leadership of many of our county attorneys who are currently working to expunge old records. Prosecutors have initiated expungements for old misdemeanors like these, particularly in metro counties, but not all counties have the same resources to pursue these options, and so there are regional inequities. The County Attorneys Association has been a terrific partner in this effort, with several county attorneys dedicating many hours to helping put this bill together over many years. The Clean Slate Act would automatically expunge records for certain crimes after a crime-free waiting period. It excludes enhanceable offenses, person offenses, or criminal sexual conduct. It contains important protections including allowing continued law enforcement access to records. It also allows Department of Human Services access to records for sensitive employment background checks. And this year, we are adding that pardons will be automatically expunged as well. This is the third session I've brought this proposal, and I'm grateful for the bipartisan support this bill has received in the past. We have a very broad organizational support that we've received, and hopefully folks have the handout with the many logos of support. But I'll just mention a few, which include organizations like Violence Free Minnesota, Minnesota Coalition Against Sexual Assault, the Catholic Conference, Americans for Prosperity, and many more. This bill is an opportunity for rehabilitation and for better economic opportunities, which we know reduces recidivism. It's about offering hope and offering second chances. Thank you, Chair Becker-Finn, and I have a few testifiers I'd like to bring forward now.
All right, thank you, Representative Long. We've got Gina Evans is first on the list, and then Chaz Anderson is next. When I tell you you're next, if you could move a little closer and get ready. We've got a full agenda today. All right, please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
My name is Gina Evans. Thank you, Chair Becker-Finn and members. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak on this very important issue. My name is Gina Evans, and I am a member of the Legislative Affairs Committee for the Second Chance Coalition. I see several familiar faces, but for those of you that don't know me, here's a little background. After 15 years of IV meth addiction, bad relationships and criminal behavior, I wound up in Shakopee Women's Prison 3 different times. I found freedom from my substance use disorder at Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge. My crimes range from fifth-degree possession and check forgery to financial transaction card fraud. I take full responsibility for my terrible behavior and fully understand the impact that it had on my community. I look back on that time now, and I look back on that time in my life, and it feels like a book I read or a movie I saw, because that Gina that committed those crimes no longer exists. In July, it'll be 20 years that I've been free from chemicals. 20 years is a big milestone, and I can tell you that I knew for certain by 3 or 4 years of sobriety and healing from my trauma that I was never going back to that lifestyle of drugs and crime. I was just on the background eligibility task force, and we had some experts come in and testify in both the area of criminal behavior and substance use disorder, who said after 5 years, the risk of return to symptoms drops dramatically by like 85%. Anecdotally, I see this over and over again in the recovery community and my friend groups. I received a pardon extraordinary in 2016 from Governor Dayton, Chief Justice Gilday, and Attorney General Lori Swanson. I was very grateful for that honor. 20 years crime-free and a pardon. You would think that that would clear your record, but unfortunately that is not the case. I went down to the BCA just a couple of weeks ago and pulled my criminal record because I'm working on expungements right now. After a pardon, the only thing that actually changes is that my BCA report on the disposition changes to pardoned. For landlords and employers that don't know or understand the law, it might as well still be there. So now I'm working on getting all my crimes expunged one by one. Thank you for taking the time to consider these changes to Minnesota law. There are other folks just like me out there who have made mistakes but have changed their lives, worked really hard to change their lives. People who have the potential to do and be so much more, if only we can remove barriers to success in employment and housing and allow this path to redemption. Thank you for your consideration for the Clean Slate Act.
Thank you for your testimony, and congratulations on your sobriety and your clean slate.
Yes.
Chaz Anderson, please introduce yourself for the record and go ahead with your testimony. We have Grace Waltz on deck.
Good morning, Chair Becker-Finn, Lead Scott, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Chaz Anderson, and I'm here representing the Justice Action Network. The Justice Action Network is the nation's largest bipartisan criminal justice reform organization, working at the federal level and in 20 states, including Minnesota, since 2016. Since 2019, an informal group of stakeholders in Minnesota have been meeting and evaluating the possibility of moving to an automatic expungement system for certain offenses. Back in 2019, when we started meeting, Pennsylvania and Utah were the first states to pass automatic expungement laws. Over the past 4 years, we've drafted, introduced legislation for consideration by the legislature, continued to work with stakeholders, and consulted with other states. And today, I can say there's 10 states with now automatic expungement process, and House File 2023 is the product of all this work and engagement with stakeholders. I'll point to 2 studies from Michigan and Minnesota as it relates to expungement policies that illustrate why this is an important economic issue. Both studies found that cumbersome petition-based systems fail to provide the relief as they intended. The 2019 study in Michigan that House Majority Leader Long referenced found that 6% of eligible people obtained expungement within 5 years of being eligible. The Minnesota study from Santa Clara University found that just 5% of people with records eligible for relief received it under the petition-based system. In addition, that same Minnesota study found conservatively that there's an annual wage gap of about $5,100 between individuals who have expunged records versus individuals who do not for same and similar offenses. The study estimated that $2.4 billion in cumulative earnings are lost every year in Minnesota due to this gap. So what does closing this gap mean for Minnesota? It means fewer individuals reliant on social services, more tax revenue for the state, but more importantly, the opportunity for individuals to seek improvement in their lives and for the lives and benefits of their families. Lastly, an important feature of this bill, House File 2023, includes employer and public safety protections and for the ability of law enforcement agencies to access expunged record data at any point in time. Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you for your testimony. Next up, I have Grace Waltz, and then I have Bob Small next, if you want to come on up. All right, please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Representative Long, and members. My name is Grace Waltz, and I serve as the Vice President of Public Policy at the Minneapolis Regional Chamber, and I'm here today to testify in support of House File 2023, the Clean Slate Act. As the largest local chamber of commerce in the state, representing businesses across the Twin Cities region, we know the importance of having trained and skilled workers. As we continue to grapple with an extraordinarily tight labor market, that need is more important than ever. We believe this legislation will help provide a pathway for workers to help fill this void. Unfortunately, there are many obstacles for individuals with criminal records who seek to better their lives but face barriers in education, housing, and employment. According to the Brennan Center, the number of Americans with a criminal history has increased significantly over the past 30 years. Today, nearly 1/3 of working adults have a criminal record. Our country now has roughly the same number of people with criminal records as they do with college degrees. These numbers do not include people who were arrested but never charged or individuals who were acquitted. As we look to our workforce in the next decade, employers need trained and skilled workers. When we testified in support of this bill in previous legislative sessions, we spoke of the worker shortage that was bound to continue even in a post-pandemic world. The need for workers across all sectors and industries is still very real. Employers are looking for creative solutions, and this legislation provides a much-needed opportunity to expand our talent pool. This bill will allow for a pathway for individuals to receive automatic expungement for certain convictions while still maintaining public safety access to those records. We're also pleased that this bill includes important protections for employers. This will make an enormous difference for individuals who are seeking to enroll in post-secondary education options, training programs, obtain occupational licenses, and secure stable housing. Thank you for the opportunity to provide our support for this important legislation.
All right, thank you for your testimony. And Executive Director Small, please introduce yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My name is Robert Small. I'm the Executive Director of the County Attorneys Association, and I am proud to be here to add the County Attorney's support to this very important bill. I'd like to thank Majority Leader Long for his perseverance and his willingness to grab a lot of people and put them together and work very hard to get the bill in the form that is before you today. And so I am proud that the association is a signator of with many others, in support of this bill. So thank you very much and hope you would pass this bill.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Are there any other members of the public wishing to testify on this bill? All right, seeing none. Representative Long, you can come back up. Discussion to the bill. All right. Oh, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Long, on the bill on 4.4, there's a citation there, 609A.02 sub 3. Could you elaborate on that section and what it addresses in your bill?
Representative Long.
Chair Becker-Finn, Representative Scott, yes, this is a reference to the existing petition-eligible felony expenses, which the legislature in the past has enumerated and I think is also included in the bill language on pages 8 and 9. And so these are offenses that are deemed to be relatively minor felonies, and so they are ones, I'll give you a couple examples. There's willful evasion of fuel tax, altering livestock certificate, rustling and livestock theft. So some of these aren't ones that come up that often. The one that would probably come up the most often, I think, would be fifth-degree drug possession. And so hopefully that answers your question.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Long. Do any of them have to do with interference of privacy?
Representative Long.
Thank you, Chair Becker-Finn. I might phone a friend for House Research who might know the list better off the top of his head than I do.
Mr. Johnson.
Madam Chair, members, Ben Johnson from House Research. Interference with privacy being a broad term, I don't think there's anything that falls specifically under that sort of description. There are over 50 offenses on here. Primarily, as Representative Long noted, they are relatively minor offenses. There are some theft-based offenses. There's some telecommunications and information services fraud. There's a computer theft, a cellular counterfeiting. So to the extent that those would fall under that general category that you're talking about, that's possible. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
I will note on line 9.27, I know when I'm scanning through here, 609.746. I don't actually know what that crime is off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up, but it does say interference with privacy subsequent violations. I don't know what that, we may have to look that up. I don't know. Representative Scott.
I've got the statute book, but thank you, Madam Chair. So Representative Long, 3.24, I guess I had the wrong citation. It's 609.746. Has to do with interference with privacy. So I don't know if that helps Mr. Johnson or not. I just know, the reason I bring it up, members, is we've heard a lot of bills even just I think last week or maybe the week before and over the years about people putting cameras in wrong places and interfering with people's privacy. And I just want to make sure that this is not letting those folks have a clean slate.
Representative Long.
Thank you, Chair Becker-Finn. So on 3.24, these are the exceptions from misdemeanor offenses. So any misdemeanor offense other than interference with privacy. As Chair Becker-Finn noted, there is the separate crime that is included in the current expungement eligible, and that's not one I'm familiar with, so I'm certainly willing to dig into that and follow up with you. The bill has one more stop in public safety, but our intent certainly is to exclude criminal sexual conduct type crimes from eligibility for automatic expungement.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if Mr. Johnson wants to elaborate on that anymore. Not really?
No, I know there are a lot of members sitting on this committee that are also on public safety, so I'm sure we can work with Representative Long if it's appropriate to make a change that's possible. I see some nodding heads from my public safety.
All right, thank you. I'd appreciate that.
Yep, thank you. Representative Johnson.
Chair Becker-Finn, Representative Long. I'm trying to get all the wording. It's a lot of things listed in this bill, and I think I wanted to make sure that, let's see, on line 3.15, it deals with 609-2231, assault in the fourth degree, that those were not automatic or eligible for expungement.
Representative Long, I think you just explained this, but if you could clarify, some of the crimes listed are things that are eligible, and some of the crimes that are listed in the bill are things that are not eligible. Representative Long.
That's correct, Chair Becker-Finn. So it's a little confusing to read through, but essentially the entirety of page 3 are exemptions. So those are not included for automatic expungement under the bill. It's any misdemeanor offense other than the list that follows.
Representative Johnson.
Chair Becker-Finn, Representative Long, that was the issue, because in subdivision 4, it says eligibility, certain criminal proceedings. You have the ones that are allowable, that are eligible, and that eligibility is in bold print, but then when you get down to the ones that aren't, it's misleading, because those are all listed in the eligibility section. So it makes it real confusing the way this is, unfortunately, the way it's drafted. I think you need to do an amendment to get excluding in bold print so people understand better.
Representative Johnson, I find a highlighter helps. Any further discussion to the bill? All right, closing comments, Representative Long.
Thank you, Chair Becker-Finn. Thank you, members. This has been a bipartisan bill for many years. As mentioned, we have a really broad coalition behind it. And the goals, I think, were said very clearly by Gina Evans, that we are trying to give people the opportunity to get their lives back, and often even those who've worked as hard as Gina has to get her life back struggle with the expungement process, and this is one way that we can make it a little easier for them to get jobs, get access to housing and education.
All right. With that, I will renew my motion to re-refer House File 2023 as amended to the Public Safety, Finance, and Policy Committee. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion prevails. The bill is on its way to public safety. We'll see you soon in public safety, Representative Long. Thank you.